Hey everyone, thanks for tuning back in to Ruling Sports TV. I'm Alicia Jessup, and what I'm going to do now is break down the Final Four of the 2012 Division I Men's Basketball March Madness bracket. So I've gone through each of the four regions with you: the South, the West, the North, and the Midwest. And so now we're going to pool the four teams that I've taken out of those four regions and put them into the Final Four. And I'm going to break down how I expect them to perform in the Final Four. Ultimately, I'm going to tell you who my winner is for this year. I hope I have as much success as I did last year when I picked the University of Connecticut to win it all. I think I have a pretty good, but also a pretty safe pick, so I don't know. I might be upset in the end. Okay, so coming out of the South, I have Kentucky, and in the Final Four, they would be matched up against, in my bracket, Missouri out of the West. Ultimately, I have Kentucky winning this game, and the reason why I have Kentucky winning is although Missouri is better than them in terms of scoring, Missouri is the sixth highest scoring team in the country. It averages 80.3 points per game. To me, Kentucky is more of the whole picture, the full Monty, if you will. Kentucky is 15th in rebounds, averaging 39.2 per game, 132nd in assists, averaging 13.3 per game, and 10th in field goal percentage, 48.7% from the three-point range. Kentucky, another thing that stands out about them, they lost to Kansas. They lost to Kansas, Kentucky beat Kansas by 10 points, whereas Missouri lost to Kansas twice during the course of the season. And that might seem irrelevant because they played them at different points of the season and different things were going on with each team during the course of those games. But it's one clear way to compare two teams that haven't met up during the course of the regular season and that play in separate conferences. So I think Kentucky's win over that Kansas team and Missouri's two losses against that same Kansas team signal that Kentucky could beat Missouri in the Final Four. I also think Kentucky is a little bit deeper in terms of its talent level. You have four starters for Kentucky that average over 10 points per game, and I know that you have five over at Missouri, but Anthony Davis, Doran Lamb, Terrence Jones, and Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, in my opinion, are four of the best players in this country. On top of those four outstanding players, Kentucky has two guys that average over 9 points per game, Marquise Teague being one of them. I think that, along with Coach Calipari's veteran experience in coaching, this is Frank Haith's first year as head coach for the Missouri Tigers, so that might come into play in this situation. But I think Kentucky is the all-around package in this game, and I'm expecting them to beat Missouri. Nonetheless, Missouri should really be commended for a 30-win season and getting this far in my bracket. I love this team, and I think that they did great things this year. So if they really do make it to the Final Four, that's pretty awesome. Okay, so coming out of the North and the Midwest in my brackets, I had Ohio State and North Carolina, both very great teams. I think some might think that Ohio State underperformed, even though they're a pretty high seed in this March Madness bracket. But Ohio State is 35th in points per game, whereas North Carolina is first in the country. Now, I understand that the Big Ten was a tough conference this season, but that still makes a difference, the differential between points per game that each of the respective teams is scoring. Then, in terms of rebounds, North Carolina is second in the country, and Ohio State is 57th. Things like that really come into play when you're getting this deep into tournament play. Assist, North Carolina's fourth, Ohio State 31st. Field goal percentage, that's where Ohio State might be able to beat North Carolina. Ohio State ranks 12th, and North Carolina ranks 54th. So that's one way. If Ohio State can shoot a bunch of threes and if they're strong from that area, and if North Carolina's unable to defend them there, then Ohio State could win. However, given North Carolina's really strong defense, I don't think that's going to happen. Additionally, I think that this Ohio State team relies too heavily upon three players. And it might be funny for me to say that given that North Carolina arguably does the same thing and might be running into issues under the possibility of John Henson not being able to play. But I think Ohio State's reliance upon Jared Solinger and William Buford, and you can maybe even throw an Aaron Craft in there, is so heavy that if North Carolina's defense is able to penetrate those players and really limit their shooting ability, that they will be able to completely shut down the Buckeyes. So for those reasons, I'm expecting North Carolina to beat Ohio State. Again, impressive season by the Buckeyes. They really benefited by Jared Solinger coming back and not going into the NBA. If they can get some more points and rebounds from Aaron Craft, they could beat North Carolina. But in my bracket, I'm choosing North Carolina. So I am now wearing blue again, and that is because the two teams I have facing off in the NCAA championship for this 2012 season are Kentucky and North Carolina, both teams that don blue on their uniforms. And I've gone back and forth about which one I should choose to be the national champion, but after looking at it one final time, it becomes clear to me. And unfortunately, I'm going to have to diverge from our Commander-in-Chief, President Barack Obama, who selected North Carolina to win the national championship. The last time he picked them to do so, they won. I'm picking Kentucky. And my reasons for that are in those four players that I named above: Anthony Davis, Doran Lamb, Terrence Jones, and Michael Kidd-Gilchrist. These players are so talented, and I really think they're going to shock both North Carolina's offense and their defense. I think on defense, these four players are fantastically strong. They're each capable rebounders, and I think they're going to tie up North Carolina's defense as well. Like I said, North Carolina's defense, one of the best in the country. But what you have here are players that average double-doubles, that being Anthony Davis. He averages over 10 points per game and over 10 rebounds per game. And then you also have a player who averages the most minutes per game on Kentucky, that being Marquise Teague, but who is not the highest scorer of the team. He's a high scorer. He averages 9.4 points per game, but what I really like about Teague is his assists. He averages 4.8 assists per game. And what that says to me is Kentucky is a well-rounded team who gets scoring chances from a variety of players, but is also defending the ball well too and creating scoring opportunities from its high rebound percentage. I understand North Carolina's is higher, but for some reason I just really have this gut instinct, and I think there's solid numbers behind it to make Kentucky my winner. Additionally, I just used this example for Ohio State, but I'm going to use it again for North Carolina. If John Henson is unable to play, I think that's really going to hurt North Carolina in this matchup in particular. I don't think it would hurt them as much against Ohio State, because I think the loss of John Henson to Ohio State would not be as detrimental. But when you have four key players like Kentucky does, and arguably five if you add Marquise Teague into the mix, the loss of one of your top three players, that being John Henson, could really negatively impact you. The other thing, though, about North Carolina is they are a little bit deeper. Only one player on their team averages over 30 minutes per game. So there's the chance that even this far into the tournament, if John Henson still is unable to play, that it will not negatively affect the Tar Heels. However, I just really like this Kentucky team. One of North Carolina's losses this year came to this Kentucky team. Granted, it was only a 1-point loss, but a loss is still a loss. And what that signals to me is that Kentucky has the perseverance, determination, and the understanding of how to beat this Tar Heels team. It's something only two teams were able to do, or excuse me, five teams actually beat North Carolina. But it's really important that Kentucky had the ability to do so. Only two teams were able to beat Kentucky. Um, so that's why I'm picking Kentucky. And I think Kentucky has performed at a very high level throughout the season. Like I said, only two teams, that being Indiana, an early season loss, which took place on December 10th. It was a 1 point loss. And then their second loss, as we all know, came in the SEC championship game against Vanderbilt. And that's a Vanderbilt team that's been on a bit of an upswing. It definitely surprised a lot of people. But I think Kentucky's going to win it all. So I hope I'm right, and I hope you enjoyed watching me break down each of these games. I cannot wait for March Madness, and I'm going to finish this the way I began it. Each one of these teams participating in this tournament is a winner because they persevered throughout a very long season. They had great games, and they show extreme amounts of talent. And I think as we all tune in starting tomorrow morning, that we really pay attention to the hard work that these men and their coaches and the assistants and the athletics directors and everyone that helps put on these games, that we really pay attention to the time and effort that they've put forward in giving us this great opportunity to watch such awesome talent. They should all be commended, and this little series that I did is in no way a negative response to any of the teams. But like I said, each game has to have a winner, and these are mine on my bracket. Thanks for watching. Tune in next Tuesday to Ruling Sports TV. We'll be back to a normal schedule. I'll be talking about the latest happenings in the world of sports law and sports business. Have a great week and enjoy one of my favorite times of the year, March Madness.